one in weeks. I was busy for the explosive Coca-Cola, and this one is Funbo Mayhem. This is a funny one, so I think it's a theme park. So let's read this one. It was Saturday, and Professor Bard was zooming down in the road in his cool convertible. He was on his way to Funbo, and ordinarily that he was enough to put a smile on the professor's face. But today was even more special. The Funbo theme park had been closed for 3 weeks for renovations, and today it was opening back up. Professor Bard stopped at a red light and grabbed the Funbo flyer he had read about 100 times already. He smiled and read it aloud one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, he read. Funbo Theme Park proudly presents our grand reopening, featuring the world's fastest stand-up roller coaster, the Discombobulator. Also this Saturday, the annual BoStacks Championships will be held at Funbo. The professor grinned from ear to ear. If there was anything he loved more than riding roller coasters, it was playing BoStacks. Professor Bard arrived at the gates of Funbo, bought a ticket, and strolled inside happily. The park was already filled with hundreds of people playing games and zipping around on rides. The professor walked in the BoStacks competition area to register his name. Volunteers were busy setting up plates and filling a large tank with water, get ready for the competition. In BoStacks, 2 players had to stand on a log floating on the water and tried to roll the other players off, while at the same time balancing stacks of plates on their heads. "Good morning, Professor," said a giant pink ball with legs. It was Lottie, but instead of a gum bubble, her face was blocked by a great ball of candy floss, or cotton candy in the U.S. "Good morning to you, Lottie," answered Professor Bard. "Where are the other Zaleros?" "They're around," answered Lottie. "Let's look for them." Together they walked through the crowds. They met Rue and Amali in the games area. Rue was doing calculations and coaching Amali on the best way to knock over a stack of heavy milk bottles with the baseball. Oscar and Isha came stumbling over after playing on the spinning teacups, which had made them quite dizzy and giggly. The group passed the log jam, a ride where riders sat in a giant shade car like a log, and sped down a track into water at the bottom. They saw it was stuck on the track. "It looks like they still have some problems to work out," laughed the professor. The Zaleros were headed to meet Ace at the dolphin pool, but the professors had a BoStacks match starting soon. "I hope I don't have to meet Allison Stack-Up, last year's champion," he said as he headed off. Ace and Zoro greeted the other Zaleros at the dolphin pool, where Xena was working as a volunteer to trade the dolphins. "Come on backstage, guys," said Ace. "Xena has something really cool to show you." He led them into a back room which smelled like fish. They found Xena in a wetsuit, using hand symbols to direct a group of dolphins. "Hi, Zaleros," welcomed Xena. "Check this out." Xena pulled out a small device that looked like a telephone with some extra knobs on it. "I'm working on a way to understand what the dolphins are saying," she said. "This device is going to help translate their language into English." She turned it on. The dolphins began to click and laugh. "Sardines, sardines, sardines, sardines," came the voice of the machine. Maybe they don't have too much to say after all," said Xena glumly. Even though Xena's machine didn't seem to reveal a lot of the dolphins, the show really did. She had a team of 6 dolphins who jumped through flaming hoops, did backflips, caught frisbees out of the air, and sprayed water on the audience all in Xena's direction. The Zaleros cheered and clapped through the whole show. When it was done, Oscar asked if he could take a look at Xena's translating machine. Xena agreed, and Oscar popped it into his bag. After they said goodbye to Xena, the Zaleros started walking back towards the BoStacks competition so they could watch Professor Bard compete. They passed the Ferris wheel, and Isha laughed. Looks like Professor Bard was lucky after all," she said. The Ferris wheel was stuck, and there on the very top chair and sat a very grumpy-looking Allison Stack-Up. As the Zaleros walked on, they began to notice something odd. Many of the rides have been working earlier were stopped, with riders stuck on them and waiting for help. They saw Ollie Over, another famous bow stacker, trapped in a big plastic lemon at the top of the lemon drop. Then they saw Sam Rollerwitz, last year's runner-up, suspended on a seat of the humongous wings. Something strange, said Rue. The park is just opened up, and why are these rides broke? And why is there a champion bow stacker trapped on each of them? Asked Molly. It doesn't seem like a coincidence. They decided to split up and investigate. After 5 minutes, the Zolaros were back and talking excitedly. They had looked around. It seemed like all the other 10 bow stacks in the city were trapped on one rides. All of them, except Professor Bard. The Zolaros raced through the crowd, led by Lottie on her speed skates. They knew they had to find the professor before he got on any of the rides, in case he got stuck just like the other bow stacks players. They got to the competition area, but they were too late. Professor Bard was gone. I saw him walking off towards the discombobulator, a helpful man told at the competition. They sped off to the roller coaster, but when they arrived, they found hundreds of people in line. I see him, shouted Isha. He's about to get on. They saw the professor step in the stand-up roller coaster Scott's safety traps closed around his legs. Wait, Professor, come back, shouted Ace, waving frantically, but he was far too away as he understood. Yes, Ace, called the professor, waving. That's some track. The discombobulator started off with Professor Bard and other 21 riders strapped by their legs. Standing up in the cars, it zipped around some curves, drew some spirals, climbed up to its highest point, and started to zoom back down. The Zolaros watched with concern until Rue murmured, Maybe we're wrong. The ride hasn't stopped after all. Right after that, the roller coaster blasted through a set of loop-the-loops. It went through the first two, the riders screaming and laughing, but on the third rip, the car seemed to start slowing down. Oh no! Professor! Exclaimed Lottie. The ride had stopped, just as the Zolaros had feared. The professor was hanging completely upside down on top of a great loop. His face was already starting to turn pink. The Zolaros waded through the crowd, watching the roller coaster. They got as close as they could to the upside-down car. Professor, we were trying to warn you, called Ace. All the best bow stack players from Bow City are stuck on rides at the park, and now you are too. That's strange, answered the professor in a strange voice. It sounds like someone is trying to ruin the competition, but who and why? The Zolaros all looked at each other, but nobody had an answer to the mystery. We should try to help Professor Bard get down from there, suggested Oscar. Don't worry, gang, called the professor. Just try to find out who tampered with these rides. I'd like to help you, but thinking seemed to make the blood go to my head more quickly. Seeing how the professor's face was turning, the Zolaros decided he was right. They waved goodbye and hurried off to talk to Xena about what to do. Back at the dolphin pool, the Zolaros caught up to Xena while she was feeding small fish to a large, handsome dolphin. They hurried to tell her everything that had happened with the Bow Stacks players, and how Professor Bard was stuck upside down at this discombobulator. This is serious, guys, said Xena, but I don't know what to suggest. What we really need is a clue, said Amali while doing a handstand. I don't know how long the professor will be able to stand being upside down like this. What about the man who was lurking at the rides yesterday? Asked a voice. What man are you talking about, Oscar? Asked Lottie. I did not say that, said Oscar, holding up Xena's translation machine. It was this thing. Mr. Flippy Flop, exclaimed Xena. You can speak. Actually, my name is Ryan, said the handsome dolphin through the machine. I've been trying to tell you that for weeks, but you didn't seem to get it. Anyway, I'm glad that we could have a chat, since a few of us dolphins are too impressed with the food here. Wow, Ryan, I'm sorry this is amazing. The translator works, stammered Xena, clearly excited. Sorry to interrupt, but what do you say about the man who was here yesterday? Asked Lottie. Any clue you have could be really helpful. Well, I don't know if it would help, started Ryan. But there was a weird-looking fellow wandering around all around Funbo, waving his hands, and, well, it looked like he was talking to the rides. Ryan laughed, and the translating machine said, "Us dolphins sure thought it was mighty strange. That's all we know." "If you want to find out who the man is," said Oscar, "we could go back in time to yesterday and find out why he's trying to ruin the competition." "Great idea, Oscar," Isha said. "Before we go, let's tell the professor what we learned so he knows that help is on the way." The Zolaris said thank you to Ryan the Dolphin and left him, and Xena had an exciting conversation using the translating machine. Again, they hurried through the park back to the discombobulator. Work crews were trying to fix the roller coaster, but it was still stuck upside down. The professor's head had turned a bright shade of purple. The Zolaris told the professor their plan, but all he could do was sputter, "Good luck." "We traveled back in the past before, but never just one day," exclaimed Ace. "This is going to be interesting, Desperate Sir. Unavailable on current copy." The Zolaros stood in a circle and put their hands in the middle and chanted, "4 points of the earth, moon and sun, unite together and become as one. It's off to yesterday at Funbo we go." Instantly, they found themselves in exactly the same place. Only it wasn't the same at all. They were still standing in the front of the discombobulator, but they were all alone, and the coaster car was parked at the right platform. Zoro barked, and the sound disappeared down the rows of games and rides. Balloons were inflated, plush toys were stacked and ready at the game booths, and all the rides were shiny and new-looking. It felt like that any second the theme park would open and thousands of people would stream in a day filled with fun. "Giggling gumballs," chuckled Lottie. "This is weird." This is yesterday. "Then that means the strange man should be here soon," said Isha, and everyone's minds snapped back to their mission. "But how will we find him?" asked Ace. "Funbo is huge, and even if we split up, we might never see him." "Maybe we should talk to Ryan the Dolphins," suggested Molly. "But we didn't bring the translating machine," answered Oscar glumly. They thought about the problem silently while Zoro chased the butterfly that was fluttering by. Suddenly, Rue said, "I have an idea. Remember the first ride that we saw jammed up today? The log jam," giggled Lottie. "Right," Rue answered. "So if we head there and wait, that should be the first place the mystery man shows up." "Great thinking, Rue," said Ace, smiling. "Come on, Zoro. Let's find out what's going on." The Zolaros walked quickly to the log jam and found it quiet and still. There was no one around, so the Zolaros looked for a place to hide and wait. They chose the ticket counter and crouched behind it so if they could see anyone walk up to the ride, and they waited. The Zolaros were eager to learn who was trying to win the bow stack competition, and that made waiting almost unbearable. They had been for only 15 minutes, but seems like hours. Amali squirmed, Zoro scratched, Ace twiddled his thumbs, Oscar rummaged through his backpack, Rube drew dirt with the stick, and Isha read all the signs she could see around her. Finally, Lottie sighed and said, "Maybe this isn't going to work." Just then, Zoro's ears perked up. "There, can you guys hear that?" whispered Isha. "Someone's here." The man was wearing a dark cloak and was moving strangely near the ride control booth. The Zolaros wanted to see who he was, so they crept closer. They could hear him speaking in an odd language, getting louder and louder. Isha poked her head up from behind a post and gasped, "It's Sorcerer!" They ran towards him, and Oscar threw his lasso around Sorcerer's waist and arms. "I knew you Zolaros would show up sooner or later," sneered Sorcerer. "We don't know why you're trying to capture all the Bowstacks players," challenged Ace. "But now that we've got you, you won't even get to start your evil spell. Do you really think you can capture me, the great Sorcerer?" He replied and laughed. Suddenly, flames burst out along with the length of the lasso, and Oscar dropped it with a yelp, while Sorcerer dashed off. "Come on, guys, let's get him," shouted Ace, and the group ran after Sorcerer. They chased him between rides and behind food stalls. Lottie had a bubble ready for when they caught him, but he was getting further ahead. "There," spotted Isha. He ran in there. She pointed the bumper car arcade, and the Zoleros raced inside, but they found it dark and deserted. "We've lost him," sighed Amali as she sat down in one of the bumper cars. The Zoleros all sat in the cars to talk about the plan. Rue was just about to suggest waiting at the discombobulator when suddenly the whole place sprang to life. Music blared and lights flashed and blinked. The security bars came down over their shoulders, and the Zoleros were all trapped on the bumper cars, which started whizzing across the floor. Over the music, they heard Sorcerer's booming laugh. The cars raced around her carrying the Zoleros, slamming them into each other in the walls of the arcade. "I'm going to be sick." "Ugh," groaned Lottie. "We need to turn off the electricity," shouted Rue. "There's the switch, next to the back door," shouted Isha. Oscar dug through his bag, pulled out a rope, and lassoed the switch. He caught it and managed to shut off the power. Everything came to an immediate stop. "Good thing you always carry a backup lasso," mused Amali. The security bar still had the trap, but Ace had an idea. "Grow Zorro," he called it. Zorro started to grow in the car where he was sitting, snapping the security bars. Once he was free, Zorro used his giant bars to bite through the other security bars and free the Zoleros. "Good work, Zorro!" exclaimed Oscar. "Oh, my head feels like a ping-pong ball." "Oh," moaned Lottie. The Zoleros split up and scoured the park in pairs, but they couldn't find Sorcerer. "We're too late," cried Lottie when they met up again. "Not if we go back early," replied Isha, winking. The Zoleros moved into a circle and chanted, "Full points of the earth, moon and sun, unite together and become as one. It's back to tomorrow morning we go." Back at Funbo, Professor Bard strolled inside the park where he met the Zoleros waiting for him. "Good thing he doesn't look like a blueberry anymore," Ace whispered and Lottie giggled. The professor was shocked when he heard the story about Sorcerer. "He's here at Funbo?" he asked. "He was yesterday," answered Amali. "We lost him, so we got back in time to tell all the Bowstacks players not to get in rides." "Great thinking, Zoleros," Professor Bard said. "Come on, I'll help you warn the Bowstackers." Ace stood up on a box to address the crowd of confused Bowstacks players. "Everyone," he began, "I know this is hard to believe, but you're in danger. A wizard named Sorcerer was here yesterday, and the cast spells on their rides to make them trap all of you. We don't know why, but he's trying to ruin the Bowstacks competition." The crowd of players looked at each other in disbelief. "This is crazy," shouted an angry woman's voice. "It was Allison Stack-Up, last year's champion. I bet Bard is trying to scare us so he can win the competition himself." "The professor would never do that," answered Amali. "Well, I think it's baloney," said Allison, "and I'll prove it." She marched over to the lemon drop, gave her ticket, and got into a big lemon, which slowly climbed up to a tall shaft where, of course, it froze. After seeing Allison trapped in the lemon drop, the other Bowstackers decided that the Zoleros were telling the truth and promised not to get on any of the rides at the park. "Great work, Zoleros!" exclaimed Professor Bard. "You saved the competition." With that, the Bowstacking started out when Professor Bard was doing very well. He won his first match, and in the second, where he drew against Ollie over, he sent Ollie tumbling over into the water while keeping himself and his stack of 32 plates dry. One of the new competitors, a man named Rose, who wore a sweatshirt with big hood, was also doing very well. "I hope I can make it to the final," said the professor excitedly. And maybe this Erecros fellow will too. The Zaleros wished him luck and promised to be back once they had told Xena of the day's adventure. How is this Erecros company? Sorry we missed your show, Xena, Isha said as the Zaleros were at the dolphin pool just as the crowd was leaving. We got a bit tied up. Hi, Zaleros, said Xena. That's alright, I was worried when you didn't show up, but since you guys were always on time. I thought maybe something strange had happened. Glad to see I was wrong, though. Well, actually we've been busy trying to solve a mystery, started Molly as she proceeded to tell Xena the story about how Sorcerer had tried to ruin the Bostax competition and how Ryan the Dolphin had helped him to stop him. Meanwhile, Oscar had found the translation machine and was tinkering around with it using the screwdriver on his pocket utility tool, just like he had the first time around. Sardines, 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 hi there! Blared the machine as Oscar fiddled with the oscillation resonator knob. Hi, Ryan, answered all the Zaleros together. Strange, how did you know my name? Asked Ryan the Dolphin. Is this something to do with that man who was lurking at the park yesterday? The Zaleros nodded and quickly gave the same explanation to Ryan as they had to Xena. Thanks for your warning. We have been back in time to foil his plan, said Ace. We were lucky, but it looks like the competition is going to be safe. You mean you stopped him from talking to other games in the park? Asked Ryan. You mean the rides, right? Said Lottie. No, the games. He was hanging on all the game poops that afternoon. Ryan answered. That means, stammered Oscar, that Sorcerer went back in time and changed his plan. Finished Molly. I don't know who this Sorcerer person is, said Ryan, but he doesn't sound like a very nice guy. I think you need to be careful. So we had to go back to the competition and warn the players not to ride the rides or play the games here at Funbo, declared Ace. But wait, said Rue. I saw Sam Rorowitz and Professor Bard playing in that game where you throw darts to pop balloons. And Petra Platra was shooting ducks in a barrel this morning. That all seemed fine. Then why did Sorcerer enchant the games? Asked the confused Isha. Guys? Said Lottie, looking past the group. I think we know. Marching towards the Zaleros was an army of giant teddy bears, bouncing balls, and a particularly nasty-looking rope ladder. Oscar lassoed a couple of the teddy bears, while Lottie blocked the door to the dolphin training room with the big gum bubble. Let's get out of here, shouted Ace, and the Zaleros raced to the door and out of the room. They heard a great pop behind them, and they knew the enchanted game objects had made it past the bubble where it could be right them. Look out, Zorro! Exclaimed Molly. She grabbed Zora and somersaulted away as a ring toss ring landed with a thump right where it had been. Lottie zoomed ahead while Rue grabbed the baseball and threw it as the pursuing milk jugs. A gang of balloons flew ahead and blocked their path, and Oscar threw some pencils in his backpack that made him pop. A decoy duck tried to bite Ace, but Isha helped him away, shouting, Run, Ace! With Lottie in the lead, her super skates. The Zaleros sped ahead as fast as possible. They headed towards the Bostax competition, hoping that Professor Bard might be able to help them. The game objects seemed to be a little tired, and the Zaleros managed to get further ahead until it looked like we were going to be safe. We did it! We got away! Panted Molly. Wait, what was that sound? Asked Ace. They heard a crash and the sound of something heavy, and suddenly a pink huge ball came slamming towards the side of the game booth as the Zaleros moved away. It's cotton candy! Yelled Lottie. I always thought it was so nice. They were almost at the Bostax competition where they could see the professor competing with the Recros, but it was too late. The ball rolled faster and faster, and finally it rolled right over the Zaleros. Is everyone okay? Asked Rue from somewhere near the bottom of the giant sticky ball. All the professors and all the Zaleros answered, and Zora barked in agreement. They were all fine, but they were completely and totally stuck in the pink candy. They were also surrounded by all the game objects that chased them, and they looked mean. As long as we're stuck here, I don't think anything can hurt us, said Isha. But I think I know what we have to do. Can you guys see Erecro's shoes over there? I know they look familiar, declared Ace. Of course. Erecro's sorceress felt backwards, stated Rue. So that means if we want to escape, Professor Bard has to win the last bow stacks match, Oscar added. The Zoleros sucked in huge lungfuls of air and started cheering for the professor as loudly as possible. Come on, Professor Bard, they shouted. Erecros had just added a 40-second plate to the stack of his head and looked like he was going to win. Professor Bard was waving his arms quickly, trying to keep his balance on the log. The stack of plates on his head teetered and tottered wildly. This was the moment the professor had been waiting for, and he launched into his famous Bard maneuver. No one else in the world had ever achieved the Bard maneuver, and he was only too well just how dangerous it was. Last year, in fact, he messed it up and resulted in having to spend 3 weeks in the hospital. The professor started the super fast log spin, which jumped as high as he could and landed with enormous thud on his bottom, thereby catapulting Erecro straight into the water. To avoid disqualification, Professor Bard needed all 38 plates to land perfectly on his head, which they did. The crowd went crazy. Amali ran up, covered in pink fluff. Professor, she exclaimed, Erecro's is sorcerer. The Zoleros had been released by Sorcerer's magic when he landed in the water, and now they were surrounded by the dripping magician and they weren't alone. The bow stacks were also moving it on Sorcerer from all sides. So you're the one who tried to ruin the competition, shouted Ollie over. Even after a bath like that, you're still a stinky cheater, accused Allison Stacko, who had just come down for the lemon drop. You don't know what it's like, answered Sorcerer in an unusual whimper. I practice every day and I still can't win. It's not fair. It's certainly not fair to cheat, Sorcerer, said Professor Bard calmly. If you really want to be the best, you will have to work the hardest. It sure doesn't hurt having great friends to support you, too. The professor winked at the Zoleros. Suddenly, they heard a loud screech above them. I'll practice all right, warned Sorcerer, and next year I'll beat you for real. Out of the sky swooped Aquila, Sorcerer's eagle, who grabbed him in their talons and carried him away. Professor, we can catch him with a hurry, said Lottie, ready to zoom off. I think we could let him go, answered the professor. That might even let him compete again if he learns to play fair. But for now, you're the champ, Professor, laughed Oscar. I couldn't have done it without you, Professor Bard said. In fact, I'll have to keep practicing too. It looks like there's going to be some tough competition next year. The professor pointed behind them and they turned to see Zorro on a log, balancing a stack of plates on his head. Wow. He's pretty good too, said Ace. Look at all those. Fall to this balance breakfast. His mouth is closed out.